Here is a video on how to memorize the unit circle based on patterns. There aren't really any mathematical principles going on here, it's just looking at patterns and being able to write them down purely for memorization. If you want to see how the unit circle works and how it's in this way, the numbers are where they are, then I have a different video for that. But based on patterns, here we go. So the first thing that you should know is that over here, every single thing is all under 2. So 2 is in the denominator of every single number. Okay, so there we go. 2 is in the denominator of every single one. And again, I was disregarding the 0, the 90, and the 180. So basically, all of those guys. Alright, so after you fill those in, it's time to fill in some of their numerators. Well, a key thing that you can do is you can start on the x-axis in this first quadrant and go right here, root 3, root 2, and 1. It's a countdown. Now you go ahead to the second quadrant and you do the same thing. Root 3, root 2, and 1. Head to the third quadrant down here. Root 3, root 2, and 1. Head over here to the last one. Root 3, root 2, and 1. So there we go. We've got all those down. And now, starting in this over here, the first quadrant where we see a root 3 over 2, the only thing that can go with a root 3 over 2 is a 1/2. 1/2 goes with root 3 over 2, and that's the only thing that goes with those. So way up here, we see a 1/2. We know that the only thing that goes with a 1/2 is a root 3 over 2. Head over to the second quadrant, and right up here we see a 1/2. Well, we know the only thing that go with 1/2 is a root 3. And we see a root 3 over 2. And we know the only thing that can go with that is a 1/2. Heading on down to the third quadrant, we see a root 3 over 2. We know the only thing that can go with that is a 1/2. And the last one in the third quadrant with 1/2, we know has got to be root 3. Heading to the fourth quadrant, right here, we see a root 3 over 2. We know a 1/2's got to go with that. And the bottom of the fourth quadrant, we see a 1/2. We know a root 3 is the only thing that can go with that. So there we go. We filled out almost all of them. We just have the root 2 over 2. And this one isn't hard at all. The only thing that can go with the root 2 over 2 is a root 2. So now you can just go to every single one that you see root 2 over 2 and add a root 2. Again, you're probably seeing the pattern that the middle one of the quadrants is going to be root 2 over 2 in the case of the unit circle. So there we go. We filled out all the main points, minus the 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. So we've got those. Alright, so now that we have kind of the coordinates pumped in, the radians are next. And sometimes this is what looks to be the hardest because people can't quite find a pattern. But there is a pattern if you look at the denominator. We will be starting in the bottom of this first quadrant, and the pattern is 6, 4, 3 for every single one. 6, 4, 3. 6, 4, 3. Then again over here, 6, 4, 3. There we go. We filled out all the denominators. And now we go into the numerators for these radians. These are sometimes a little bit different, so we'll look what we have to do. Starting this first quadrant is pretty easy. It's just, all you have to remember is pi over is in the numerator for every single one. So now going on to the the second box over here, you see the 643 and we want the numerator. All you have to do is just subtract 1 from the numerator. We'll put n for numerator. So what is 6 minus 1? 5. And of course you got to add the pi. This is in radians. 4 minus 1? It's going to be 3. And then add the pi. Then what is 3 minus 1? That is 2. And I have to add the pi. So there we go. We know that that one is minus 1. Heading to the third quadrant down here, you will see the 643 again in the denominator. And then the thing you have to do here is opposite from the second quadrant. Now you have to add 1 to the numerator. So we see this 6. What is 6 plus 1? 7. And of course add the pi. And then we over here to 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Add the pi. 3 plus 1 is 4. And add the pi. Now the fourth quadrant, I haven't been able to think of a pattern or anything for the radians. The numbers you pretty much have to remember is just 11 pi, 7 pi, and 5 pi. You can come up with your own little creative thing. You can come up with the numbers or anything else. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you have any good slogan for that. I would love to hear it. So there we go. We've pumped in all of the radians. Don't forget the pi for every single one. Okay, now moving on to the degrees. The degrees aren't too bad here, but sometimes they're the hardest to remember. So the easy one is down here, and this is just 0. And you want to see how much degrees is gaining or falling for each one. When you have a big gap, such as this one right here, every single big gap is plus 30. So you're going to want to add that everywhere. That'll probably help. Okay, the big gaps have been added to be plus 30. And then if you look in these small, more acute gaps, these are all plus 15. So you can just add a plus 15, and to see it, you're going to want to add that to all the boxes as well. Alright, there we go. We have all the numbers in for the degrees, and now it is just time to pump them in. So 0 plus 30 is 30. Then 30 plus 15 is 45, plus 15 is going to be 60. Now you got to add that 30, and that'll bring you to 90. Sometimes it's good just to know those 4 main points. 90 everyone kind of knows, so that's good to know. 90 plus 30 is going to be 120. 120 plus 15 is 135. 135 plus 15 is 150. 150 plus 30, everyone knows this angle, this is 180 degrees. 180 plus this big 30 is going to be 210. 210 plus 15 is going to be 225. Plus 15 is going to be 240. Plus 30, everyone knows down here, is 270. 270 plus 30, 300. This one isn't so bad. 300 plus 15, 315. Plus 15 is going to be 330. And everyone knows this one. 330 plus 30 is 360. So there you go. You've plugged in all the degrees for your unit circle. Okay, so now that we've plugged in all the coordinates and degrees and their radians, there are the main 4. The 0 degrees, the 90 degrees, the 180, and 270. These didn't fall into the pattern, so I thought I would do them last, but it's actually probably best to do them first because everything kind of corresponds with them. So we'll start with this 0. In radians, this would just be 0, so I don't even really have to fill it in. And to find the coordinates for this, think of it like a number plane. A unit circle, its radius is always 1. So to get to this point here, you would go 1 and y 0, because you're not going up any, you're just going across 1. So once you understand that unit circle, its radius is 1, these are easy to fill in. 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. So there, we got those. And then looking at the coordinates, you may have noticed that the other coordinates don't have the negatives in there yet. So if you turn this in, this would actually be wrong. So I just introduced the idea of the unit circle being a graph. So now we understand that there have to be negatives inputted into the different coordinates to make it true. So if you look at this first quadrant over here, everything can be positive, positive, because it is in that first quadrant. But once you head over here to the second quadrant, this is negative. So that means these x-axis have to be, I'll do it in black because I did everything else there. These have to be negative as well. So there we go, make sure those are negative. And then when you get into this third quadrant, both have to be negative, because not only is your x-axis run negative, but also your y-axis. Negative, negative. And down here, your x-axis is positive, but your y-axis is a negative run. Fix that too. There you go. Did I add that Okay. So now you have the coordinates are correct with their negatives and positives because we understand that this is a graph. All right, so the last thing we have to do now is plug in the radians for each of these four main points, the 0, 90, 180, and 270. Starting at this, and 360. Starting at the 360, we know that this is going to be just 0. The 0 is going to be 0 because you're at 0, so it kind of makes sense. 360, if you know a full rotation in radians is 2 pi. And that's because, if you think about it, 2 pi r is a circumference. And since r is just 1, you kind of just take it out of the equation and just get 2 pi. So there we go. But we're basing this on patterns. So 2 pi, and then if you were just to divide that by 2, you would end up with pi all over 2. Head over here, you just get pi, because it is half of 2 pi. So 2 pi all divided by 2, the 2's cancel out, therefore you were just getting pi. Then head over here, you're going to get 3 pi all over 2, and of course you bring it up, you're going to get the 360 and 2 pi. Alright, so that kind of wraps up the unit circle. I hope now you see that there are patterns for doing this. These are not the real mathematical equations, but if you see patterns, you understand. If it is a quick time test, you can quickly look at it and understand that, okay, all the middle numbers are going to be root 2 over 2. I sometimes will do this, root 2 over 2 on every single one. And the ones that are closest to the x-axis are all going to be root 3 over 2. Closest to this y-axis, these guys are all going to start with 1/2. You plug in the negatives correspondingly, or where they should fit. And a little disclaimer, I didn't come up with this all myself. There are many patterns out there to memorizing the unit circle. I combined a few here. These aren't ones that I came up with instinctively. I kind of mashed a few together from ones I had learned from previously. So all in all, I hope this helped, and if you are looking for more practice, or you'd actually like to time yourself and test yourself, I recommend a website called, I'll write it up here in the upper right-hand corner in red. It's called dudefree.com. And this website will enable you to be able to test yourself. There's a quiz that you can do that'll give you points, and you can time yourself, and it's great. It will really help you, and it actually ended up helping me be able to improve my unit circle. So I hope this helped all in all, and I hope now you understand the unit circle. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.